First principles, the most powerful way to think. Highly successful entrepreneurs, organizations, and individuals have gained phenomenal leverage, grew by leaps and bounds, establishing new benchmarks in performance by the application of first principle thinking. This has automatically catapulted them into the billionaire club within a short period of time. Much of the recent phenomenal success stories with new billionaires reaching for the stars, on the verge of entering the trillionaire club, have done so by fundamentally altering their reality because they quit conventional thinking by analogy and establishing the primary truth by first principle thinking. By reasoning from the first principle thinking, the impurity of assumptions and conventions are eliminated. What remains are the necessities. It is one of the most effective mental models for improving your thinking because the essentials enable you to see where reasoning by analogy may lead you down the wrong path. The most recent example of such a success is Elon Musk, who's also responsible for acknowledging and making the first principle thinking popular. Elon Musk, the entrepreneur, epitomizes the philosophy of first principles thinking better than anyone else today. The first principle approach has been used by many great thinkers throughout history, including inventor Johannes Gutenberg, military strategist John Boyd, and ancient philosopher Aristotle. Musk began his quest to launch the first rocket to Mars in 2002, an idea that would eventually lead to the formation of the aerospace company SpaceX. He was immediately confronted with a significant obstacle. After visiting a number of aerospace manufacturers around the world, Musk discovered that the cost of purchasing a rocket was prohibitively expensive, costing up to $65 million in some cases. Because of the high cost, he began to rethink his approach to the problem. During an interview, Musk stated that he tends to approach things from a physics framework. Physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy, as opposed to other subjects. So I said, alright, let's take a look at the fundamental principles. What is the composition of a rocket? Aluminium alloys of aerospace quality, as well as a small amount of titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. When I asked what those materials were worth on the commodity market, he replied, they are worth nothing. It turned out that the materials cost of a rocket was only about 2% of the typical price, the researchers concluded. To save money, instead of purchasing a finished rocket for millions, Musk decided to start his own company, purchasing raw materials at a low cost and build the rockets from the ground up himself. That was the beginning of SpaceX. Within a few years, SpaceX had reduced the cost of launching a rocket by nearly tenfold while still making a profit on each launch. Musk applied first principles thinking to break the situation down to its bare essentials, bypassing the high costs of the aerospace industry and coming up with a more effective solution. First principles thinking is the act of distilling a process down to its most fundamental components, which you are confident are true, and then building on that foundation. Fundamental truths serve as the building blocks for all other truths. Once you have gathered all of your resources, you can use them to develop an entirely new and innovative approach. We make major life decisions far too frequently on the basis of outdated or incorrect information. However, in a rapidly changing world, historical truths and experience may not always be applicable, which is why it is sometimes necessary to take a step back and apply the first principles approach in order to develop a more customized and innovative solution to the problem. It is possible to gain a new perspective on habits you have wanted to change or that you are needed to change by applying first principles thinking in your daily life. This way of thinking can also assist you in completing a task that you have been meaning to complete. As you break down the problem, you will be able to develop a unique perspective that will allow you to move forward rather than simply falling back into the old lazy status quo that you have been stuck in for so long. In life, we begin with a variety of principles that are shaped by our values, perceptions, belief system, and the way we learn to reason. These principles result in opinions and allow our brain to apply shortcuts in the form of previously learned conclusions. We come to accept them without questioning their underlying assumptions. While the principles may have been sound when we began, determining whether they still apply requires debunking old theories and inventing new realities for ourselves. Primacy of first principles thinking requires adopting a new mindset that recognizes when our established ways of doing things are no longer appropriate. A paradigm shift in thought processes that challenges conventional wisdom, pierces dogma, and calls into question our own beliefs. Let's talk about how you can apply first principles thinking to your personal and professional life. Number 1. How do we typically think? Number 2. Begin with constraints. Number 3. Iteration and optimization of a pre-existing path. Investigate possible solutions in the form of variants of what exists in the absence of true knowledge. Consider the past and then decide what to construct. Inquire about the path taken to accomplish a goal. Thinking from the first principles. How should we think? Here's an outline of possible ways of thinking and working on it. Consider the possibilities. Defining and exploring an entirely new path. Create a new recipe using the fundamental truth as a starting point. Consider the future and its requirements. Consider the question, what is the objective? First principles thinking primarily is reasoning from the ground up and entails dissecting a problem into its fundamental building blocks, its essential elements, posing powerful questions, drilling down to the fundamental truth, separating facts from assumptions, and then constructing a view from the ground up. It necessitates an understanding that our experiences may differ from the reality and that true knowledge can only be attained through the ability to integrate disparate ideas. It bridges the divide between the incremental mindset and the wonderful world of possibilities. Thank you for watching. This is Srinivasan Gopal from Motivation on the Move.